Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Sonenday. I'm the Transplant Center Director at the University of Michigan, and I'm really grateful to all of you that have joined us in this virtual environment of the Wolverines for Life luncheon. We have a great program for you today, and I'm really honored to participate. I'll be introducing our keynote speaker and wanted to just offer a few words of introduction. First of all, I think it's important for us to remember why we're here. So we are here today to celebrate organ and tissue donation. We have to remember that arguably the largest challenge in transplant that we face today is the marked disparity between the number of patients we have in need of organ transplant and the number of organs available for those transplants. The current number of people on the waiting list for solid organ transplantation in the United States is approximately 110,000, the population that would fill the big house, just for that important reminder and analogy. These are 110,000 people waiting for a life-saving transplant, a few thousand of which die every year while waiting for transplant. And I think that speaks to the importance of our work and the challenge that we face. I think the incredible miracle that occurs with every transplant really speaks to the power of those events. First of all, you have the incredible gift of the living donor or the deceased donor family that provides this life-saving gift to one of our recipients, a recipient who has loved ones, family members, friends, who enjoy the benefit of that person's transformation back to good health and prolonged survival. And I think that really speaks to the incredible impact or ripple effect of every transplant event. And I think is a real humble reminder to each of us how many people are affected by the work that this organization does, by the work that organ procurement organizations around the country do, and the work that transplant centers like ours try to do every day. So again, I'm just so grateful for those of you that have joined us today and for taking this moment to remind ourselves of the importance of our work. Today, we're going to hear from a really remarkable individual who has been personally impacted by this miracle of transplantation and the need for more organ donors. I have the privilege to introduce today Dr. Vick Strecker, who is a visionary leader, expert in the fields of behavior change, communication, and well-being. His pioneering research has led to several successful ventures, reaching millions of lives. He's the founder and CEO of Kumanu, a next-generation well-being company. He's a professor here at the University of Michigan in the School of Public Health, and he is a renowned speaker and author who I myself have heard speak many times. And one of my leadership gurus gave me his book, Life on Purpose, a few years back, and it really became a template for me in my own leadership journey. The book grabs you from the beginning because it includes a transplant story that he will share much more articulately than me. In 1995, Dr. Strecker founded the University of Michigan Center for Health Communications Research, studying the future of digitally tailored health communications when fewer than 15% of Americans at the time had internet access. In 1997, he founded Health Media, a digital health coaching company that was sold to Johnson & Johnson in 2010. And more recently, he created the organization Kumanu, who I referred to, which is a Maori word for nourish and cherish, a digital platform designed to help individuals and organizations live more purposefully, which is really the central focus of a lot of his recent work. So I would like to hand the platform to Dr. Strecker and thank all of you for joining us today for this really important moment to honor organ and tissue donation.
Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate those kind words and look forward to this. I'm, in fact, quite honored to be able to do this. I'm going to share my screen and we'll see if this works. It usually does. We'll put it that way. So I'll just ask Chris or Megan, can you see this? All right.
Looks great.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so you see the story, a story of purpose, how living for what matters most changes everything. So we'll unpack that in just a second. But before then, I guess I will tell my personal story, a story of our family. My wife, Jerry, our older daughter, Rachel, in 1990, we saw the birth of Julia, our daughter, and on December 23rd, and she was born as she used to like to tell people a 10 out of 10. So she was born very healthy and very happy. And within 6 months, I was on sabbatical with the family in the Netherlands. And so she was 6 months old. Rachel was, I think, about 4 years old at the time. And suddenly Julia started getting sick and she started losing weight. And for a 6-month-old, you don't want to be losing weight. They thought for a while in the Netherlands that it was just some sort of stomach or esophageal problem. And then a cardiologist walked by her the room, and he just looked, and he didn't like what he saw, and he brought another person in, and she didn't like what she saw. So they did an echocardiogram, and they then pulled us into a room and said, your daughter's heart is entirely ruined. She has what's called a cardiomyopathy, probably induced by some virus like a chickenpox virus. And there's no hope for her, we're afraid. She probably has a month or so to live, maybe a couple of months maximum. And so this moved from a healthy baby, and we're in the Netherlands and we're on sabbatical and we're having a great time, to suddenly our daughter is going to die. And I'll never forget, through my tears, asking the doctor in the Netherlands, is there any hope of like a heart transplant or something? And she said, oh, no, we don't do those here. And so you just need to let her die. You need to go home, go back to the US and just let her die. And if I were you, I'd probably just let her die at home. So we flew back to the US the next morning, and we talked to doctors there. After about a couple of days of tests, they said, the rest of her organs look okay, actually. And but we have not done a heart transplant. This is at the University of North Carolina, where I was a professor at the time in Chapel Hill. But we have a new surgeon from Stanford who had just come, and he has been hoping to find somebody to transplant. We've been waiting. There was one person who was waiting for a new heart, and we couldn't get a heart in time, and she unfortunately died. But we'd love to do this if you're open to it. So we talked about it a lot. In fact, I started doing research on it. I started diving into the library, and back then, this is in 1991, I started looking at the library as it existed, all the journals. There wasn't an internet the way we have now, but I started pulling out and copying lots and lots of articles. And she was really on the cutting edge. There weren't that many kids who had had heart transplants before. So I started pulling out all the data. And I remember I would hand the doctor this stack of different notes, articles saying, okay, well, here's what we know about this. And it looks like about 50% of kids die waiting for a new heart. And then even after getting a new heart, about 50% die within the first 5 years. And she said something really amazing to me. She said, your daughter is an N of one. She's not a statistic, and everybody is different. And so while all of these articles are important, and I've read all of them, certainly, you have to decide personally whether you want to go through this, whether you want to do this, whether you want to list her for a new heart. So we sat around what we call the gathering place, which is our dinner table. And we've always had this as our gathering place. And we had to ask ourselves first, should we list our daughter for a new heart? Because, we had some expectation that this is going to be a very difficult experience for her, as well as for us. We didn't know how long she would live if she got a heart, even if she did get a heart. But we decided that we had to do it. We, in a way, we just didn't have a choice. We had to give her a chance to do this. And having read the literature, it seemed like she was going to have a pretty decent, reasonable life if she could get a new heart and could survive the transplant and longer term, so that her quality of life could be quite good. So we said, okay, let's do it. But if we can give her a big life, if we can live with her as if, and this might sound a little weird, as if every day might be her last day. And not a Make-A-Wish life. And by the way, I love Make-A-Wish. I'm huge supporter of Make-A-Wish. We are. But at the same time, we didn't want to go to Disney World every day or have her meet Cameron Diaz or whatever. We wanted to just give her a richer life, a bigger life, but a bigger normal life that would be normal for her. So she ended up becoming the first pediatric heart transplant case in the southeastern part of the United States. And when she got that heart, it was almost like getting a brain transplant for her. And quite honestly, it was like a brain transplant for us, because we went through 3 months of some of the most difficult time that we've ever gone through as a family. It's like, and for you in the audience who have participated in this, who have been waiting for an organ, it's like a gray cloud that's just following you everywhere. It's just, everywhere you go, there's a gray cloud. Every, hour of the day, maybe sometimes every minute of the day, you might be in a conversation and then you go, I wonder if Julia will get a heart. And when that day came, it was so special. For one thing, it was on Valentine's Day. So that was pretty astounding. And when she got it, it was, like I said, almost a brain transplant. She just totally changed. Her whole personality changed. She had more energy. She was just more vibrant. And I've seen other people go through the same thing. And it's just like suddenly they're a new person. And it's very, very special. And so in living as if every day might be her last day, we wanted to make sure that she had a big life. And so we wanted to make sure that she had love, and she did. So in her life, she had tremendous love. She had incredible friendships. And we wanted to make sure that she could have friends outside of the family, if at all possible. She was on a softball team for many years. I was the coach of her softball team. I just watched her. She went to Burns Park Elementary School. For the whole first year in her softball team, she never got a hit. She was terrible. And, it's just, but it didn't matter. It was so great just watching her out there and watching her field the ball, even though she couldn't hit. But when she did get her first hit, I started crying. It was just so special. And everybody was. So everything she did, in a way, all of these achievements that she had were so incredible. She had amazing challenges during her life. When she was 9, she ended up needing a new heart. And because many organs have a shelf life, and they, sometimes they just wear out, or sometimes the drugs that they have to take help them wear out a little faster. And it turns out when she was 9 years old, she just needed another heart. And that was an incredibly challenging experience for us. We were by that time at the University of Michigan, and I was professor here. And she ended up in the ICU, and she was waiting for a new heart. And one night I was actually, they had been kind enough to give me, there was an empty hospital bed, and I was just sleeping there near her room. And I got a tap on the shoulder at about 3 a.m. by one of the nurses, and the nurse had tears in her eyes, and I knew something wasn't right. She said, well, Julia's had 3 heart attacks tonight, and we're still working on her. And she's not looking good at all. So I called my wife. We came in and saw her, and she was on a respirator. Her eyes were wide open. They were fixed. Her pupils were fixed and dilated, as they say. She hadn't responded to any test, including what's called a Lubinsky test, where they would take a scalpel and scrape the bottom of your foot, which is not pleasant at all. And she did not respond to that a bit. And she was just out. She had burn marks from all of the paddling, that they had done to try to resuscitate her from the shocks. And so it just didn't look good for anybody. And it's funny because at that time, it was the last thing that I had thought about. And we certainly weren't asked about this, but my wife said, well, if she is going to die, and she had a do not resuscitate sign put on, we all discussed it and we said, she's already had 3. And by the time we saw her, she had actually had 6 heart attacks. And we all decided a do not resuscitate sign was probably fine. We didn't want to continue to push this if she was suffering through all these, through this ordeal. And so, I'm sorry, I get a little choked up talking about this, but my wife said, we would like to donate her organs to other people. And so they said, wow, okay, if she does die, that would be a wonderful thing. We'll call the transplant team now to get that done. But it's going to be another 3 or 4 hours while they fly in. And so they had a transplant team getting ready to fly in. And we went to the Arboretum, which I'm sure many of you know about. And as a family, our older daughter, Rachel, and Jerry and I were in the Arb. And we basically just said, we have been a quartet as a family, and now we'll be a trio, but we will still make positive music. We'll still make great music as a trio. And we came back, and oddly enough, to everybody's surprise, to everybody's shock, in fact, to the doctors, everybody, she actually revived from this and from this experience. And I won't go into any detail, but I will say that my wife's transcending thought about transcending her or about transplanting her organs may have actually saved her life. So she got a new heart within a matter of, I think it was 2 days. And when that happened, again, she just started perking up. Everything started getting better. And she went through elementary school, through middle school, through high school. She had a wonderful boyfriend. She went to the prom a couple of times. She had amazing friends. She had amazing experiences in her life. We went through a lot of wonderful experiences. I travel a lot around the world being in public health, and I would bring her with me. And so we ended up seeing a lot of parts of the world together, as did her older daughter. So we tried to manage her days as if every day might be her last. And in doing so, we kind of manage our own lives as if every day may be our last. And it's funny, this is not new. The Stoic philosophers did the same thing. So Marcus Aurelius, a famous Stoic philosopher, wrote in his book Meditations that he would wake up in the morning and assume he would die that day. Imagine that. Imagine if he would get up and say, I'm going to die. Imagine Mrs. Aurelius, how mad she would be, eat your granola, stop saying you're going to die. But he would say that because he wanted to make sure that he lived a big day, as if that might be his last day. In other words, this finiteness of life gave them greater life, gave them this urgency of life. Because imagine if you're to live forever or a very, very, very long time, every day would be less meaningful, less valuable to you. It's almost like if you have $1 million, every dollar is less valuable to you than if you have $5. It's easier to give away more money when you have a lot than when you have very little. So not knowing how much she had in terms of years of life, we made every day valuable, and we started making each of our days valuable. And the only reason we could do that was because of transplantation. That was the only reason. Otherwise, we would have lost her when she was about 6 months old. So she had amazing experiences. She had amazing achievements in her life. She got into the University of Michigan School of Nursing. She really wanted to be a nurse. That was like her big goal through most of high school. She wanted to give back. And that was her big aspiration, to go back, to become a nurse, and give back what those amazing nurses, those amazing clinicians had given to her, which was a life. Her spring break, her freshman year in college, wasn't a great, she wasn't doing all that well before. She was just getting tired. And there was no physical sign that she was rejecting, but she didn't seem quite right, just seemed really tired. And so we brought her down to the Caribbean with her older sister, and just to get warm, because, often transplant, if you have a heart transplant, she was just not getting enough blood to her through the rest of her body. She was kind of cold. And so we brought her down to the Caribbean. And I remember we had this wonderful couple of days. We had wonderful dinners right out on the beach at our gathering place, only it was on the beach. And the third night in, we were all walking back to our rooms, and she turned to us and she said, "I am so happy that I could die now." And that night she did. She died. Those were her last words to us. "I'm so happy that I could die now." And while this may sound like an incredibly sad story to people, and it's not meant to be a sob story, it's not to be a story where people I hope people don't feel too bad about this in a way, because she lived a very big life. She died when she was 19 years old. And we feel, because of transplantation, that we were able to look at her life as a finite time. We all live in a finite time. We may live to be 100. That's still incredibly short, given the bigger expanse of the universe and time in general. We still all are on this planet for a very brief period of time. She was on for just a little bit briefer, but she had a very big life and lived that life. And it was thanks to the people who offered their organs. So when I look back on her life, I actually feel joy. I feel gratitude. There's sadness because, well, of course it's not fair, but what is fair about life? So I don't worry about the fairness or lack of fairness. I think a lot about how grateful I am that she was able to stay with us for almost 20 years, and what a special person she became, and how many amazing experiences, how many aspirations, how much love she had, how she dealt with challenges. Those were super important things. So I'd like to shift this a little bit, because they asked me not only to talk about my own story of my daughter, but also a little bit about a public health perspective of this. And Chris talked quite a bit. He mentioned how many people are waiting, and how there just aren't enough organs for these people who are waiting for various kinds of tissues and organs. So I wanted to, as a behavioral scientist, I wanted to explore, why don't people donate their organs? And so I did a little bit of research on this. I'm not an expert on organ donation attitudes, but I certainly, in talking to people, I think Yogi Berra once said, you can observe a lot by just watching. And I've seen other people talk about this. And then I started doing a little research on this. And so I'll give you just a little list of why people don't donate their organs. There are emotional reasons why people don't donate organs. And then there are what people consider facts, although the facts are usually myths. But it turns out that emotions are much more important than the facts. So I wanted to cover a couple of those. One, and this is what researchers actually call it, is ick. So the ick factor. People will say, it's just disgusting, this idea of harvesting organs or having my organs exposed to other people and handed out. So that's one, the ick factor. So that's very emotional, isn't it? It's this visceral ick factor. There's another one called jinx. And this is an odd one. And by the way, the ick factor is really important. The jinx factor, if I register as an organ donor, then I'm more likely to somehow get hit by a bus and die. Somehow I'm going to be more likely to die if I become an organ donor. And as illogical as that may sound, jinx seems to be really differentiating people who are willing to donate organs versus people who are not willing to donate organs. Then there's just medical mistrust. And we see this now quite a bit with vaccines, with the COVID vaccine, in fact. So if I'm a registered donor, doctors might take my organs even before I'm actually dead. So there's some degree of mistrust. There's a mistrust of medicine. There's a mistrust of science. These are things that differentiate organ donors from people who don't want to register as an organ donor. And then there's bodily integrity. And this is really, to me, intriguing that in my religion, I want to be able to go to heaven as a whole body, which is really interesting given the fact that bodies decay. Bodies, of course, we all know that, and I don't have to get into detail about it. But there is this sense that you need your entire body through some religions. And in fact, there's a study done in Israel that showed that the more religious you were, the less likely you were to be willing to register as an organ donor. There was a study done examining different religions and found that Catholics were somewhat less likely to want to give their organs, often citing religion as a reason, even though the Catholic Church has specifically said it's fine to register as an organ donor and to give your organs to other people. There are other religions too who get into this, and this has been studied throughout the world, it turns out, not only in the US, but in Japan, in Korea, in China, and many, many other places. Religion often is cited as a reason for not wanting to do this, for this reason of body integrity. Somehow I have to have this whole body, which is, once again, to me, maybe somewhat odd. And so my first reaction, and maybe your first reaction, would be to say, you know what, we have to bust these myths. These are all myths. And we should say, here's a myth. And by the way, here's the reality. So let's bust it. It turns out when people try to do that, it often actually has a counterproductive effect. When we try to say, oh, guess what? Some people say this. Well, here's the counter argument. Some people say this. Here's the myth buster, the counter argument. What happens is that people become more sensitized to these myths, and they start thinking about them more. And there are a couple studies now showing that people are actually less likely to then want to register. So trying to take a logical, rational approach to this doesn't seem to work very well. And yet that's what we do in the health profession. We're so used to dealing with people in this logical, rational manner. What may be more important is to try to deal with people's emotions. If you can understand them, not bring them up necessarily, but try to understand, not bring them up as a mythbuster kind of mentality, but try to understand what they are concerned about. And there's some data, it's a bit mixed. There's some data that shows that if you try to understand why that person is not interested in registering as an organ donor, you might be able to deal gently with that particular emotion that they have and discuss that emotion. But the evidence is a bit mixed on that. Once again, it may continue to sensitize the person. Here's one thing that comes out, and I'm surprised because this is actually the field of what I've been working on, as Chris said, in the area of purpose. It turns out that people who have stronger purpose in their life are far more likely to register as organ donors. And there are multiple studies of this now. And we have found in our own research that you can improve people's purpose in life. So I'm going to get into that in a second. But what's intriguing to me is that purpose in life and religion, spirituality, are usually connected. People who are more religious, what we call religiosity, typically also have stronger purpose in life. But here, what we're finding is this opposing effect between these religious beliefs and purpose. So people with a strong purpose, that works in helping it's positively associated with wanting to donate organs. So I wanted to study that just a little bit more and think about that. So when I think about purpose, and I'll get back to the title of my little keynote here, it's a story of purpose, about how living for what matters most changes everything. If you're wondering, what is purpose anyway? And how do I find purpose? Purpose is a goal or set of goals around the things that matter most in your life. And so you start by asking people, what matters most in your life? And they go, I don't know. I might start, and you could even start if you're wondering, what matters most in my life? What's on the wallpaper of your smartphone? Is it your family? Is it your children? Is it your spouse? Is it your dog? Is it a work of art? Is it a beautiful work of nature, a picture of nature? Those things may clue you in as to some of the things that matter so much to you in your life. So if you start thinking about what matters most, and if you started asking a person who's considering being a donor, what matters most to you? What are the things that matter a lot? Let me show you what mattered to Julia the most. So her friends mattered a lot. Her family mattered a lot. And others like her mattered a lot. So that's why she wanted to give back. So if you started appealing to a person's motives, their values, and you started setting a goal around that, that's what their purpose is. And so for me, my purpose is to try, in part, to be a good ancestor. Jonas Salk once said, and later in his life, we should all be good ancestors. I hope that maybe 50 years, maybe 100 years, maybe even longer, people might look back on my life and go, wow, he was a good person. And I really hope that's the case. And I hope that people say that at my memorial service. I hope that people would think about that later. And for that reason, I'm an organ donor, because I want people to think of me as a good person. But whatever matters most to you, if you can connect that, that probably would help, in my opinion, more than trying to bust myths. So I really believe in this approach, to try to understand what a person values the most, and then try to appeal to those values, what matters most to that person. So I'm going to close by talking about, I just discovered this letter a few months ago. This is a letter that, it turns out, Julia wrote to the U of M nursing school in her application process. And she really did want to be a nurse because she wanted to help other people like herself. So she had a very strong purpose in that sense. And I'm going to share with you specifically, word for word, what she wrote. This is her, by the way, on the right. 2 hours, 6 cardiac arrests, and 1 do not resuscitate later. I squeezed my dad's hand 5 times to let him know I was alive. By the end of the week, I received my new heart. Some people find religion during such an experience they might classify under miracle. I found purpose. Facing death at a young age gave me a perspective on life that was different from many of my friends. My experiences have directed and motivated me to pursue the path that will help me carry out the purpose I feel for being on this earth. So I feel like transplantation gave her this opportunity to have a life, and a big life at that. It was short, but it was very big. And that's what's so important. Imagine how many people live to be, 70 or 80 and really have not lived much of a life at all. She lived a life of great purpose. And even at a young age, she understood the importance of having a purpose and being connected, the importance of her friends, the importance of her family, the importance of giving back, the importance of a transcending purpose. And it was my wife's transcending purpose that saved my daughter's life. And it's my daughter whose transcending purpose gave her a very big life. So I hope as you're thinking about this day, that you might think about what your own purpose is. If you're trying to help other people think about whether to register as an organ donor, maybe pull back a little bit from all the rational and all the right, correct, scientifically correct reasons for why they should. because it may just make them feel dumb, and we don't want to do that. I don't think that's counterproductive, but instead maybe appeal to the reasons why they're here on this earth in the first place. And they may not be thinking about that all that much, but it's not hard to get a person to start thinking about why they are here on this planet in the first place. I'll stop there. Thank you very much for your time.
Dr. Strecker, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing that very heartfelt and personal story. And I'd heard bits and pieces of it because being in the transplant world, we hear of stories from time to time, but I hadn't heard you speak and tell that story so eloquently and so personally. I'm a father of two, and I'm also when you got me in a way that you didn't know you were going to get me when you said the story about getting hit by a bus, because in 2006 I got hit by a truck and became a tissue donor, and
Really?
donor bone was used to rebuild my knee so I could do the things that I love to do with my kids, and I gained a sense of gratitude for that person that I'll never know their name or their face for being a donor, and have found opportunities to say thank you on behalf of all recipients to donor families, and it's a powerful message, and it's wonderful that your work in public health gives you an opportunity to reflect on your experience, reflect on all of our professional and personal experiences in a way that, wow, it just hits home, and don't stop telling her story. And I think I would speak for all of us on the call saying that the saddest thing about today and about your story is the fact that I didn't get a chance to meet your daughter. And it sounds like she was an inspirational, wonderful lady that certainly would have served us well in the nursing profession. So thank you so much again. And I do have a note in the chat room that I believe there was a question for you.
Sure. Happy to answer anything.
And I'm trying to find the question.
Maybe while you're orienting, I was going to ask Vic a question if you had a minute.
Yeah, of course.
It's interesting, the analogy. So you gave a great, I think, perspective on something we think a lot about in transplant, which is kind of this concept of how do you speak to people about the important gift of organ donation, and kind of putting that in a context without overly challenging their own beliefs and assumptions. And I was struck by how much the conversation and the way you kind of laid out that framework is so analogous to a lot of discussions that are happening right now about individuals' choices to receive the COVID vaccine, which again,
very much
push too much against their kind of own assumptions. It actually has a counter productive result. So I just wondered if you could kind of put in framework how much that reality that if we use too much of a confrontational approach as opposed to, say, maybe, for example, a motivational interviewing approach, we actually go backwards rather than forwards.
Wow, you used a phrase I love, motivational interviewing. And it's funny, my wife, Jerry, was working with a colleague here, one of the world's experts on motivational interviewing, Ken Resnikow, to develop programming around discovering that person's core values first. And that's what MI, or motivational interviewing, really does. So you try to figure out what their core values are, and then you create gentle discrepancies between their behavior and those core values. And that's called cognitive dissonance. And we've known, for a long time now, for well over 50 years, that if you make that create that gentle dissonance, that very often their behavior moves back toward their core values. And so that does change behavior, but punching them in the face with a fact, hey, I'm the doctor, I'm the expert, I've got the white coat, you're not smart, I'm going to tell you, what to do, that just there's a wall of resistance. This ego wall of resistance just pops up right away. Whereas when you're helping them think about their core values, and this has actually been studied by a University of Michigan psychologist, people literally are transcending. They're thinking about things bigger than themselves. They think about community, about love, about caring, their family. And so that process of what's called values affirmation literally helps them almost rise above their castle wall of defense, and you're able to get to them in that way. So incredibly important method. And that's probably why people with stronger purpose, by the way, we have an article under review right now showing that people with a stronger purpose are far more likely to be willing to get the COVID vaccination. So we just see it time and time again, people with this strong transcending purpose, thinking about their core values, that does seem to help a lot. Even before then, though, I take one step ahead of that. It took my wife to bring up transplanting our daughter's organs when people thought that she may well die. Her chance was unbelievably high that she would not have survived her 6 heart attacks. And the doctor never did bring it up. In fact, the doctor seemed surprised when my wife brought it up and said, "Oh, well, yeah, that would be a good idea." He was a resident, but he is an experienced resident. And it's always felt to me, because I've done a fair amount of work with clinicians in teaching them how to help deal with quitting smoking and many other things. And so often, for example, among smokers, we'll ask 2,000 smokers, "Why don't you bring this up if you want to quit? Do you want to quit?" And a lot of them say, "Yes, I do." "Well, why don't you bring it up with the doctor?" Well, if the doctor thought it was important, they would bring it up. And then we asked 200 doctors, "Well, so why don't you bring this up with your patients?" "Well, if my patient wanted to quit, they would bring it up." So this is like 2 shy 8th graders at a sock hop that are waiting for each other to ask them to dance, and they never end up dancing. So I know you and other doctors who are involved in transplantation, feel, well, of course, it's what every doctor should do, but I don't know whether that dance happens enough. So I think that step just before would be important, but then a doctor or a nurse or anybody else involved in the care of a patient should know what to say. And that's where this next step is. How do you broach this subject? How do you bring it up? And I would bring it up by finding out what matters, trying to find out what matters most.
Yeah, that's a great framework. It reminds me of something I learned from your book and have seen, put in other contexts, that whether it's as a leader, as a physician, as a patient, as a parent, whatever you think you're being, what your kind of core value, your mission is, your purpose, however clear you think you are being about it, you need to be about 10 times more clear in order to really convey that message. And I think we sometimes take for granted something that we might be really passionate about or purposeful may not be even on the radar screen of other individuals, and how important
Exactly.
to share something like organ and tissue donation with individuals that just may not have exposure.
I think that's the case. And while I'm not an expert in this area, it sure seems to fit with all of the other behavioral studies that I know and have worked on. Yeah. So I want to really express my gratitude to you and to Bob and this entire team, because what you have done really changed my life. What you have done with your transplantation, with offering, a heart transplant to our daughter, it changed her life, obviously, but it deeply changed my life. I started, and I'm guessing you find families of transplant survivors, that their lives change, that they start living their days in a bigger way. They start viewing the beauty, and I know that sounds so trite, but it's not. Marcus Aurelius once literally said, "Don't live your life as if you'll live 10,000 years. And we tend to do that too often. And what you do is help people realize more than just giving them life, you end up giving them a life that people start focusing on more. And that's what's so important. So I truly appreciate what you guys do.
Dr. Strecker, do you have time for just a couple of quick questions
Sure, happy
from
to.
our audience? Larry Kloss is a recipient, and he asked if you could contrast your books On Purpose and Life on Purpose. The graphic approach of On Purpose he finds interesting.
Yeah. Oh, you mean the graphic novel that I wrote, or contrast? I'm not quite sure what.
Yeah, I guess he's that I was just reading it verbatim. So he said, please contrast your books On Purpose and Life on Purpose.
Oh, okay, yeah, those are two books. So
right.
Yeah, let's see if I have them. Yeah. So I have this book that I first wrote, and this is what my friend calls a trauma narrative. So, you know, when you lose a person, it's almost like there's a poison that has to come out, a toxin in a way. And for me, I needed to tell this story. Everybody who goes through some traumatic event, I believe, has a story that they have to tell in some way. And sometimes that story comes out in really deleterious ways. I wanted to tell a story, and I wanted to reach as many people as possible. So I started talking. I decided to do it as a graphic novel. So there it is. Yeah. So I was literally walking on Fifth Avenue, or no, it's Madison Avenue in New York City. I was giving a talk there, and it's soon after my daughter had died, about I don't know, a year or so. And I was thinking, how do I like convey this story? And I looked up, and there's a big sign. It was the DC Comics building. So I pulled out my phone and I looked up DC Comics. I called and I said, and this is in 2010, 11. And I said, can I talk to your director for creative? And they said, oh yeah, you want to talk to David? I had no idea who I was talking. I didn't even know they had a creative director, but I said, can I talk to your creative director? He said, yeah, talk to David. And yeah, this is David. And I said, hey, I have an idea here. And then he said, do you like wine? And I said, yeah, do fish swim? And he said, look, how about at 5 o'clock we get together? There's a good wine bar over here. So I bought him a really nice bottle of wine. We spent an hour and a half together mapping out a comic book around my story. And he told me about a comic book artist who was amazing, who could do different emotions. And I self-published that book. And typically the average book that you self-publish sells 150 copies. That's average. This has now gone into its second printing of 10,000 copies. So wow. Yeah, it's not huge, but a lot of people have read it. And I wanted to make it very accessible. And the imagery I used in my talk came from that comic book. And then I got a call from the editor of HarperCollins, and he said, well, I've read your book, the graphic novel, and I'd like you to write a book that has words in it. And so I ended up writing this book called Life on Purpose. And this is a little more mature book. It's a book that has more data in it, although both of them actually have a lot of data. So this is basically more of a standard book with words. The other one, graphic novel. If you want, you can get either of them on Amazon pretty easily.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. That's a great story.
Yeah.
That's a great example of just be bold and place the call. I'd like to speak to the creative director. So, I don't know.
One thing, honestly, Bob, one thing that an experience like this does for you, when you see how short how you can live a big life, it's like, why mess around? Why be a wallflower? Why not get out there and dance? Even if you're making an ass of yourself dancing, which I do every time I dance, why be a wallflower in life? Get out there on the dance floor and do something. And I was never so assertive before Julia got sick. And after she got sick, I thought, I'm here for this brief period of time too. I might as well make the most of it. So that's what you guys do. That's what transplantation actually really deeply in an existential way gives people.
I like to think that we give people hope, and that we have because we give people hope, and because they end up making a difference and recognizing it and feeling a sense of gratitude that maybe they didn't feel before. They have great stories to share. And someone else asked, Jen Sarah, who's one of our terrific volunteers for many years asked if Julia was able to donate organs or tissues or corneas when she did pass.
Unfortunately, she did not. And the reason is she died while we were in the Dominican Republic. And there was a lot of issues about moving her body, and she ended up being cremated. Or we would have done that for sure.
Absolutely. And it's interesting how it, when it comes up and you haven't thought about it in terms of being on the other side, but you obviously had already thought about it before, and your wife must be an amazing lady that she first thought of that when you had that sweet child in the hospital. I mean, I can't imagine. I really can't. Somebody else said that they love your philosophy, why mess around? And I love that too. So thank you so much for being inspirational, for speaking from the heart, for giving us the courage to pick up the phone. And now I won't hesitate to call you next time I need something. So right. I thought you were in the really tallest office over there in that building, which you probably are, but I'm not afraid to call. So thanks for giving us some inspirations, confidence, and making it a really great presentation. Interestingly, you've probably been on enough Zoom calls to see the numbers drip off after a while, and the numbers have just been going up. We've got more people on the call now than we had at noon. So thank you for sticking with us and holding our attention. And we're going to move on now to the rest of our program. And thanks so much again from all of us at Wolverines for Life. And we'll see you next time at the next lunch. And we expect you'll be in the audience raising your hand and asking great questions. So
good deal. Thanks
terrific.
for all that all of you do. Take care.
Terrific. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to a couple of presentations from our student groups. And this is a traditional thing that we've done during the Wolverines for Life. And we have, I think I don't know, I always talk about it in glowing terms, but I've got to say that when you're a student, you're busy. When you're a student at University of Michigan, you're super busy. Yet there are these student groups, that represent more and more and more students on campus and on all three Michigan campuses in Flint, Dearborn, and Ann Arbor. As well as in the various schools, and from the medical school through the geology and everybody in between, and athletics, and it's a huge place full of people who have a lot of stuff to do, and they take time to make time for Wolverines for Life. And our Wolverines for Life undergrad chapter is represented today by Rachel Miller. And I'd like to invite Rachel to share with us for a few minutes a little update about what's happening with the undergrad chapter.
Thanks for that introduction. So hi, everyone. My name is Rachel, and I'm the president of the Wolverines for Life undergrad chapter here. And so this semester, we planned a joint meeting with another club to hear from Sophia about her experience receiving a bone marrow transplant, who was actually our speaker at the last luncheon in the fall. Also, as part of the campus challenge, we took over the Gift of Life Instagram in Michigan to highlight some of our work and to help recruit even more donors. And lastly, we've also been building our Instagram account to share stories of those affected by organ, tissue, and cornea donation to help ultimately raise awareness of the importance of organ donation and the great effect that it has. And our plan for the rest of the semester is to keep building this platform. And we also want to say thank you to everyone here for all the important work you do.
Well, thanks so much, and congrats on and keeping busy and doing worthwhile work in this strange year of COVID on campus and in our surrounding community. Next, we'd like to hear from Connor Burke at Blood Drives United. I think Connor's on the call. Welcome.
Hello, thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen real quick. I have a quick presentation. So yes, I'm from Blood Drives United. I'm an executive board representing us here today. At Blood Drives United, each year we carry out the blood battle against Ohio State University. This year, it ran from October 28th until November 24th. We had 36 drives on campus, some of which were sponsored by other organizations who did a great job, and we're very grateful to them, many of which we staffed ourselves with volunteers. Our procedure goal this year was to have 1,979 procedures across all these drives. Quite ambitious given the pandemic. It didn't quite pan out. But but I want to highlight Be a Hero, which we partner with Wolverines for Life to put this on. The goal for this was 254 procedures split between the Graduate Hotel on campus and the Kensington Hotel just off campus. We ended up getting 251 procedures, so very close. We're very happy with that result, and collected 276 units. The reason the units are higher is because Power Red donations, a certain kind of blood donation, go in as 2 units on our stat sheet. For the entire blood battle, our final score was 1,396 units to 884 on Ohio State side. So we ended up winning, which we are very happy with. We would like to win again next year, and hopefully both schools can collect more units. This was a little down this year because of the pandemic, but we're looking forward to next year with hopefully a little bit more in-person opportunities. Each winter, we also do the mitten matchup. This year, we only competed with Michigan State University. It ran January 19th until February 28th. We had 30 drives across campus, and our goal was 1,258 procedures. We were fortunate enough at this mitten matchup to see Dr. Harmon, the Vice President for Student Life at the university, and also President Schlissel come in to donate. We were very happy that they were able to come in and give us a little bit of publicity there, and also donate blood, of course. The final score of this was 937 to 898. Again, a little bit lower, but we're still very happy with the result. And again, we hope to do even better next year. So I'd like to end on a personal note of significance. This picture on the left, probably at the time it was taken, the masks were not very commonplace. This was on June 19th, 2019 at Lax Cancer Center in Grand Rapids, Michigan. That was my 20th birthday. And it was towards the end of a 35-day hospital stay after I was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Throughout treatment so far, I've received 12 units of various blood products. And for any leukemia patient, it is expected that blood transfusions of some kind will be necessary at some point. And the blood transfusions I've received have been instrumental in the success of my treatment so far. So on behalf of myself and other patients like me, I want to thank you guys at Wolverines for Life for everything you do. And on behalf of myself and Blood Drives United, I'd like to thank you for your attention today.
Oh, Connor, thank you so much. Thank you for that, not making it real all of a sudden. I did not see that coming, and that's a great photo. And I'm so glad that you're doing great today, and you're doing the work that you're doing with Blood Drives United. And I'm glad that you got to report on both of those victories over those other teams that, as far as I can tell, are not in the Sweet 16. So we'll just leave it at that. But great job, and thanks so much. And next up, we're going to talk about Delta Gamma. And Julia Yellen was with us and prepared to speak, but I think she may be off to a class. And if we could maybe just check in with Megan, just to remind us what it is that Delta Gamma is doing right now, and a little bit of an update. Is Megan, are you still here?
Yes, I am. So I'm just going to read a little statement that was put together by Olivia, who is the Vice President of Philanthropy and Foundations. So she says and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing any of this, but it's the Z chapter of Delta Gamma, and the University of Michigan serves 3 main philanthropic causes, which include Service for Sight, which is helping the blind or visually impaired community, Joining Forces, helping veterans, and the Golden Anchor program, assisting the elderly in our community. In a normal year, we require all of our members to complete at least 10 service hours per academic year. This can be anything from attending a support group for the visually impaired to assisting with pony rides for visually impaired children, to even bingo nights at the VA hospital. In fact, our chapter performs the most service hours out of any campus organization at the university. Because our philanthropy encompasses so many different aspects, we are able to volunteer with 7 different organizations. One thing that makes Delta Gamma really special is that we physically volunteer to serve our foundation's missions, in addition to the fundraising events we put on each semester at our house. Of course, COVID has limited our opportunities to volunteer in person, but making a difference in our community is still an important quality of Delta Gamma. So a lot of our members have volunteered virtually these past few months. We also had a Steps for Sight event this fall where we did a 5K and raised money for these organizations. We are also in the works of planning our Spring Foundation event under COVID safe guidelines. Something we as a chapter have been doing to work towards our philanthropic mission of service for sight is called Be My Eyes. It's an app that the Sisters of Delta Gamma Z chapter have all downloaded, and the application is a way of assisting visually impaired community through a COVID safe virtual setting. People who suffer from blindness are able to call into this app, and when they require help locating something in their house, need visual assistance with their daily tasks, or simply have a question, and our members can help answer the call and provide the necessary aid. Philanthropy is such an important aspect of Delta Gamma because our letters were chosen to stand for the motto, do good. As we are unable to go out into the community to volunteer in person as often as we would in previous years, we still strive to integrate the role of service into our lives as Delta Gamma by performing little acts of good to our sisters, to our Ann Arbor community, our families, and beyond. Our do good motto is something that we all have come to embody, not only with our foundation opportunities, but also in our day-to-day lives. So thank you, Olivia, for sending that over.
Thanks, Megan. And that it just continues to just amaze me, the work and the dedication, and it's not lip service, it's real. And even in our medical school, where you would think people would be pretty busy with homework. And as far as I know, Claire Drysdale in medical school chapter for Wolverines for Life is actually in class today, but is going to share with us via a quick video. So if we can cue that, let's take a look together.
Hello, my name is Claire and I'm a first-year medical student here at Michigan. I'm currently serving as the Bone Marrow Donations Chair of the Medical School Chapter of Wolverines for Life, along with our President Lisa, Blood Drive Chair Rodney, and Organ Donation Chair Hossein. I decided to join Wolverines for Life because of a research experience that I had before coming to medical school. I spent 2 years in a lab studying sickle cell disease, which is an inherited disorder that affects patients' red blood cells and can be severely debilitating. Luckily, sickle cell patients can actually be cured with a bone marrow transplant, and I have now met many patients whose lives have both been extended and transformed because of generous bone marrow donors. However, this disease primarily affects African Americans, a group that is currently underrepresented in bone marrow registries, among other minority groups, which decreases their likelihood of finding a match. These patients and other patients like them motivate me to increase the number and diversity of individuals in the bone marrow registry through organizations like Wolverines for Life. This year, the medical school chapter of Wolverines for Life has helped coordinate numerous successful blood drives and participated in campus challenges for bone marrow donation with Be the Match and solid organ donation through Gift of Life, ensuring that patients continue to receive the blood, bone marrow, and organs that they need despite the pandemic. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to join this luncheon live due to a class conflict, but I'm so grateful for the support that you've shown to this organization by attending today. Enjoy the rest of the program.
There you go. More proof that our students are doing the right thing. And we've been talking about donation. We've talked a little bit about transplantation, and the next we're going to actually take a couple minutes to look at a video together. This is created by our friends over at Mott Children's Hospital. And instead of talking more about transplant, we're going to learn about some of the amazing initiatives that the music therapists are doing to help kids who've received heart transplants. And I know that you're probably familiar with how some of you are familiar because you've had a transplant, or because you're a donor or a donor family, or because you work in transplantation. You have a sense of what it feels like, or your experience feels like, and you will really, I think you'll really appreciate this view of how the music therapists are showing a whole new way of understanding and appreciating the transformative power of transplantation for children at Mott Children's Hospital. So we'll just ask for your attention with this video. That's what's coming up next. Thanks.
All right, now, do you remember what happened a couple weeks ago? What did you get? You want to show? Oop. Right there. That's right. And you know what we're going to do today? Just like a doctor would, I'm going to listen to your heartbeat. Okay? And then do you see these lines right here? That's going to record your heartbeat. So do you want to help me? Okay. Our heartbeat program started a few years ago, and we provide these recordings, which is just recording a patient's heartbeat and then adding live music over the beat of their heart, so the beat of their heart becomes percussion elements to the music. We started these a couple years ago, and we provide them for patients who will end up passing away, so it becomes a legacy piece for families who might be losing their child, to always have their heartbeat and a heartbeat song to continue their legacy on. And then we also provide these recordings for patients receiving heart transplants. So if they're listed 1A and if they're inpatient, we record a pre-heart transplant recording, so they'll always have a piece of their heart with them. And then we record a post-heart transplant recording. So once they have a heart transplant, we get another heartbeat recording. And both of those recreate heartbeat songs. So this is kind of an example of the process. So once we've imported a file, a heartbeat, into GarageBand, if patients or families choose live music to be recorded, this is kind of our typical setup.
In the first few days of being here, he met Child Life, really got close with so many people, but he likes music a lot, so that just kind of helped him connect to his home life, and he got to play his favorite songs when he went into surgery, like We Will Rock You. He loves to do this music thing, and the heartbeat is just so cool, but you know, I think it helps. Hearing his old heartbeat with his new heartbeat is kind of a way for him to be more comfortable with the whole idea of everything, because he has a lot of questions that he doesn't even know to ask, but I think it helps him through it. So I didn't know what Meredith was up to at first, but after we recorded his heartbeat and kind of listened to it, I thought it was cool to just have it. And then when he started putting it into his music, it blew our minds. I've never really thought anything like that was possible, but then I started hearing about other families who kind of put the new heartbeat into like a Build-A-Bear kind of thing and had that to listen to. But I think it's cool to just have both together, that we can kind of look back on. It's just like when you're looking back at pictures, you know, you can hear that too and have them as a memory that he might not, you know, have if we didn't have a recording of it.
I've seen parents and caregivers really receptive of this project. It's something really unique. Your heartbeat is very personal to you, and to be able to capture that for families, I hope it gives hope for something that's not so great. But we're able to capture who that patient is and who that family unit is through song selection. And I hope it gives respite, comfort. And that, to me as a music therapist, is why I work in pediatrics. I absolutely love being able to provide that opportunity for patients and families.
All right, hi everyone. I'm back. I'm Megan Pachanley, the program manager of Wolverines for Life. I'm so glad you are all able to join us today for our second webinar. The pandemic really affected just about everything in the past year, including these luncheons. So even though we're unable to meet in person, enjoy some great food, and make new friends, there's still some amazing things that we've learned in the past year. We've learned a lot about resiliency. When the first COVID cases came to Michigan a year ago, many of us were scared to leave the house out of fear of contracting the virus. However, when we sent emails and social media notices about the urgent need for blood donations, you guys showed up. When November rolled around and we had to make so many changes to our Be a Hero event, you all still filled the schedule. I'm continually impressed with how much you guys have showed up in the past year. We also learned a lot about inclusion. At our last webinar, we talked about racial disparities in the donation communities and how it's significantly easier for a white person to find a bone marrow donor than any other race. We learned about the need for organ transplants in minority communities, how rare blood types are only available for minority communities, and how conditions like sickle cell disease have strong racial ties. We also learned amazing things about Zoom and how it's a great way to reach people who are outside of Ann Arbor. This can help include those who are immunocompromised and don't feel comfortable gathering in large groups, especially right now. And closed captioning, which I hope you all noticed is now included in this webinar, can help those with hearing impairments. We learned how to pivot our programming, much like the rest of you, to accommodate the current circumstances. And in the end, I think we found some great benefits to doing things in a new and different way. So as we continue changing the definition of the new normal, I invite all of you to please let us know if there's anything you like, anything you want to keep around, or anything that we can change in an effort to make sure that all voices are heard at this table. We want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to learn about donation. You should receive a survey in the next day with as an opportunity to submit feedback. Now, before we wrap up, we want to take some time to recognize one person in particular who has made outstanding efforts to promote organ donation with a strong focus on equity and inclusion. From the Life Walk on Belle Isle to the Lifesavers Brunch or the Kuntz Calendar Drew Symposium, she's always busy planning some new grand event. Her focus on multicultural communities in and around Detroit has been particularly inspiring. She's constantly uniting different leaders from the community, from religious leaders to politicians to healthcare workers. She's encouraging them all to speak up, get involved, and talk about organ donation. But instead of hearing me go on and on about this person, let's hear from some of her friends and colleagues. Congratulations to the Wolverines for Life Leadership Award recipient, Ramona Chapman.
Congratulations, Ramona. I'm Patrick O'Brien, Chief Communications Officer for Gift of Life Michigan. Technically, I'm Ramona's boss, but I'm the one learning from her. So I can think of no one who deserves to be honored more than you, Ramona. Your years of service, educating and inspiring people about organ and tissue donation is legendary.
Yeah. Whether you're performing as a leader here at Gift of Life Michigan, or whether you're out in the community, you're seen as a beacon and a leader and an advisor and a trusted confidant. And we're so thankful to have you as part of our family.
Thank you for being a friend, leader, confidant, motivator, spiritual advisor, inspiration to us all, and so much more. But most of all, thank you for being you.
It's been inspiring to watch you grow and to watch you do all the amazing things that you have done in the community to help increase awareness of donation. So I can't wait to see what you do this year and the years to follow. Thank you so much for being a mentor, and congratulations.
Congratulations, Ramona, on this amazing honor. You are truly deserving of it. Thank you so much for all you've done and the impact that you've made on organ donation and transplantation.
Ramona, I am honored to be able to thank you for all that you do for organ and tissue donation. You are a true leader. I want to thank you for your compassion, your boldness, and your vibrant spirit. What I say to you is continue to be you. Thank you again. You're awesome.
Congratulations, Ramona. Congratulations to all of the different contributions you made to organ, tissue donation, transplantation, and all the awareness that you bring to the multicultural community. You are awesome. Thank you.
Ramona, heartfelt congratulations to you. Could not have happened to a more deserving person. I thank you so much for being such an amazing role model, not only to me, but for all of Gift of Life.
Congratulations, Ramona, on this award. It's so well deserved. You did such a wonderful job as an ambassador for donation, and we're all so grateful to be able to work with you here.
Hi, Ramona. I'm so happy and proud of you. I am not surprised at all that you are being honored by U of M for your contributions to donation and transplantation. Keep up the good work. I'm so happy and proud and honored to say that I work with you, and we're so happy for you at Gift of Life Michigan. Congratulations.
I can't say enough about Ramona and her accomplishments. The creation of the Coots Calendar Drew Transplant Symposium, getting diversity on both the advisory board and the foundation boards for the Gift of Life. Ramona has just been a trailblazer, and without Ramona, Ramona Chapman herself, the accomplishments in terms of diversity and organ transplants would just not have occurred.
I couldn't think of a more deserving recipient, and I wish we could celebrate with you in person. I hope in the meantime the video will make do, but looking forward to seeing you again. Congratulations.
If my friend Larry Graham were here, he'd say, you are one in a million. If the stylistics were here, they'd say, betcha by golly wow, Ramona Chapman is awesome. If my friend Prince were here, he'd say nothing compares to you. However, you've got me, and so what I am going to say is pink and green accolades to you. I am so incredibly proud and honored to call you friend. Congratulations again.
I can't think of anyone more deserving than you. You are a wonderful partner in the transplant and organ donation community, and I am so proud to call you a friend and colleague. Thank you for all that you do.
Ramona, you do so much, not just in the local community, but nationally, to help us honor life through donation. Through your work, so many lives have been saved and touched and healed. Thank you for all that you do.
For more than 20 plus years, you have poured into this organization, this community, as well as into those that work alongside you in this mission to save and enhance lives. Ramona, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we love you.
Congratulations, Ramona. This is so amazing. You are so deserving of this wonderful award and recognition for the amazing work that you do each and every day to help save and heal lives. I feel so fortunate to work with you and have benefited from your guidance and support so much over the years.
You are extraordinary in all that you do, whether it is at work or at home or in community. And so for us to be able to pause and say how much we appreciate you, how much we honor you, how much we respect you, and how much we love you, indeed brings my heart joy.
It's really a privilege to be a part of your team and to have you as a mentor. Your ability to inspire and empower others is something that I truly admire about you. Thank you so much for being a compassionate, thoughtful leader here at Gift of Life and in the community at large. You truly are legendary.
You have such care and compassion about yourself, and you're just an all-around great person. And I feel like I'm a better person because I know you, and I can also say the world is a much better place because you are here. You are amazing, you are talented, you are charming, you are smart, and you are the best. And I love you for who you are and everything that you do.
If every company or organization had a team leader like Ramona Chapman, there is nothing to stop them from achieving success. A true leader, when we say Ramona Chapman, has the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. Yes, Ramona Chapman deserves this award.
I have the utmost respect for you as a colleague, as a leader, and I think you're a great asset to everything that you take part in, and humanity in general. I'm just so happy for you.
I have witnessed how God has continued to bless and open so many doors for you. Keep on giving him that yes as he keeps on blessing you more abundantly. I am so proud of you.
Just want to say congratulations to Ramona, doing a great job with the MOTEP organization and the Wolverine for Life. Congratulations on another great year and another great accomplishment. Take care.
Your ability to engage and energize an audience, your passion for the cause, and your compassion for all you meet are absolutely inspiring to all of us. We at Donate Life Coalition of Michigan are especially thrilled beyond means to have you now on our board.
Ramona, you are honored on this occasion for being such a strong example of courage, strength, and faith. Your love and compassion that you show for others is demonstrated through the work that you do every day.
I can't think of anyone who is more deserving of this award than you. May God continue to bless you as you press on to greater accomplishments.
You are a verifiable leader in all that you do. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Auntie Godmommy, a.k.a. Ramona Chapman, on your Wolverine Award. You are amazing. I love you. Sebastian Stradavinsky.
Congratulations, Ramona. Like so many said, this award is so well deserved. Your efforts with Gift of Life MOTEP have been particularly inspiring, and we're also grateful for your efforts to promote organ and tissue donation. We received such an amazing response from your friends and colleagues in that video that we couldn't fit all of them into this program. We probably could have had an entire luncheon just filled with folks singing your praises. But right now, one of our secret agents are on their way trying to coordinate dropping off your award. We'll also send the full video compilation to her so that she can hear everyone's kind words. I'd also like to thank Dr. Vick Strecker for his presentation today and for sharing his story about his daughter, Julia. It was absolutely heart-touching and an amazing presentation. I'm at a loss for words. And thank you to the other speakers, Dr. Sanande, Bob Garapi, and our student representatives, Rachel, Connor, and Claire. If you felt inspired by any of these words, please sign up to be a donor on any of the links on the screen. If you have any questions or are interested in volunteering with us, please visit our website, wolverinesforlife.org, for more information. Thank you all for attending and have a great afternoon.